Hello, everybody, and welcome to Equality and Diversity in the Music Industry with Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today is episode 7, and we have the amazing Emma with us today. Hi, Emma, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Great, thanks for coming on the show. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do in the music industry?
Yeah, sure. My name's Emma Wiggin. I work for my own company, Westwick Management, and I'm an artist manager. I tend to work sort of in the rock genre, and I like to work with a lot of artists. Um, I try and like get the best out of them and work with their like needs and quirks, and some of them maybe need a little bit sort of extra help, and I tailor sort of my approach around them sort of as individuals.
That's amazing. So how long have you been doing that now?
I got a bit of a complicated story because basically I did start when I was about 18, 19, so back in 2009, 2009. And then I got sick, so I took quite a lot of time out.
Uh,
And I was sort of like bedbound, very ill with an autoimmune illness.
yeah,
And then I came back into it sort of when the pandemic hit.
yeah.
So yeah, I did about 2 years before, 3 years before, and then back in it for about 3 years now.
So how's it like being a woman in the industry and having to deal with an illness on top of that? Like, how does that impact your work and the way people treat you in the industry?
I feel like it does affect me a little bit because like I've kind of fallen into like two categories where I've got sort of issues in the industry. So yeah, being a woman, I've always kind of had to deal with that from day one. So I've had quite a lot of um incidents, particularly like on the live scene where I'm not really like welcome on tours, or you get hassled by like security, or you get seen as kind of like you're kind of with the band, or you get asked questions like, are you dating the band, or like, how did you get here? Because it can't possibly be because you worked hard. It's it's because you're a female kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so that's always kind of been there, and I don't think it's changed a little bit. It's got a lot better in recent years, but I still get a little bit of that. Being disabled kind of brings a whole nother
Later.
category to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and I feel like it's kind of being disabled. I've noticed the differences between outright discriminate dis discrimination and kind of very subtle discrimination.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with being a female, it was very obvious when someone was discriminating against you. When you're got a disability, it's not so obvious. So you
No.
might get like passed on sort of opportunities, or people
Not
will
giving.
subtly,
Mm,
yeah, say to you, or I don't really fancy working with you, but not kind of outright say it.
that's such a shame.
Um, yeah, so I find that's kind of the difference that between the two of them, and that's what I found sort of so
And do you
far.
feel like you get judged and you have to work harder because of that and to be treated like fairly and equally? Do you think that's a challenge as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like a lot of people hide their disabilities, whereas obviously you can't really hide being a woman in the industry.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely hid my disability for the first year that I was back, and sort of tried to push through it and didn't let people know what was going on. And it was very much like affecting how I was working, and I wasn't like being sort of the best I could be and fulfilling my potential.
Yeah.
Um, about a year ago, I then decided that I was going to really like put myself out there and let people know what was going on. And I started talking about my story more, and I felt I've been accepted so much better. And by communicating sort of my needs and like how, sort of, how I work, I found a lot more people are willing to like work with me.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, so I feel like if I put myself out there a lot more, it's actually is worth talking about.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people still have the fear of sort of discussing disability within the music industry.
Yeah. Can I ask you why you felt like you had to hold it back from your employees? Why you felt the need to not disclose?
I feel like even now, even though I'm open about it, people can still make judgments based on their kind of experience. So they'll say, like, oh, I don't think you're going to be able to do the job, or like, we don't want to work with you because you work slightly differently, which is kind of, why I've set up my business, and I work with I have a specific management style because I feel like everybody, not just if you've got a disability, but works in a very different way. Like everybody's got unique personality traits.
Definitely.
Um, so if not everybody is going to do a management job exactly the same way.
Of course not.
So I feel like, um, yeah, so
About being bespoke, isn't it? And tailoring the
yeah,
needs around the artist. And I think that's what you're saying is you're trying to help
yeah,
people that are generally not receiving that help in the first place because
yeah,
stigma around it, and you can understand and relate to that.
yeah. But I feel maybe sort of in the more corporate side of the music industry, it's not built for that. They're very much built kind of like this is the way we do things, this is the way we've always done things, and we're not willing to kind of change.
Right. But I do look at it and think, well, neurodivergence and kind of disabilities have kind of their own special aspect in the industry where they make you more creative. They make you more kind of,
Definitely.
I know it gives you certain barriers, but in other aspects, it can give you additional kind of skills. So,
Yeah, well, that's my view is I feel like, a lot of people that if they got a disability, sometimes um, or a sort of or a neurodivergent, people will look over them, but actually that's what makes them who they are, and that's like what makes them so great at what they're doing.
exactly. And it adds to a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think there's a lot of education around this in the industry at the moment? Do you think there's a lot around that?
I feel like it's getting a lot better. One of the groups that I work with is a company called Attitude is Everything, and they're absolutely fantastic about educating people and working with all areas of the music industry. So they work sort of with the live venues to help educate them on like improving disability. They also work with companies to like educate them on how they can help disabled people get into like more roles in the industry. They work with musicians as well, sort of helping them find their own paths and giving them the support. I'm particularly on the Future Leaders program, so they're kind of helping people with disabilities sort of start their career in music and support them through that.
Fantastic. And how's that kind of empowered you and helped you in your career? What's that done for you?
I think it's been massive actually. Like I really feel like I've gained so much confidence this year in myself that I feel like I lost when I became ill because you've basically when I became ill, I lost the ability to just live my normal life. I was like completely bedbound, being looked after by my parents, and sort of friends and things like that. So I feel like having the confidence and then realizing that I have the ability to like do this and support behind me has just been like completely life changing.
Brilliant. That's amazing to hear. And thank you for sharing that with us, Emma. And it's like it's a very social industry and there's a lot of networking going on. There's a lot of things that you've got to be face to face, isn't there? How did you deal
Yeah.
with that? Especially like with so many different kind of intersectionalities that you've got to deal with and barriers. How does that impact your career and your confidence?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm kind of lucky because when the pandemic happened, it actually allowed me to get back into the industry. And I feel like if the pandemic didn't happen, I don't think I'd be back here doing it just because everything went online and everyone started to change their perspective of like how they can network and how they can do meetings and things like that. So being able to do that at the beginning of the pandemic was like amazing. And even now, like people are still willing to sort of jump on a Zoom call rather than doing an in-person meeting. Um, but things are starting to go back to sort of the way it is, it's sort of normal again.
Yeah.
And I have found that a little bit difficult. So, I think one of the things that's not talked about enough is people with like a lot of chronic illnesses or disabilities and things like that, you get a lot of like fatigue and energy and pain and things like that. And they're not necessarily visible things that you can see. So
Yeah.
sort of by going to a networking event or meetings or events, it can be very tiring and like very painful. Um, and I think you've got to like take that into consideration when like planning your day. And it would be nice, kind of, if some of these things were maybe went back online or had the ability to kind of
Do one
join in,
like a high,
yeah, do one or the other.
yeah. So you're thinking that would improve the accessibility of the events for people that have disabilities or have access issues or maybe
Yeah,
have issues with traveling, anxiety, depression. I think that's a really good point you make is I think mental health's really high in the music industry, and there's a lot of people that are artists as well that work in the industry that suffer from
yeah,
these issues. And it's not really talked about enough because there's a lot of stigma behind it. So I
yeah,
think by you sharing your story and saying, look, here I am and I'm doing my thing and it doesn't stop me. It just gives me those extra challenges and barriers. I think that helps educate people that are trying to get into the industry, as well as people that are already working in the industry on how we can better support people. So thank you for that.
yeah, definitely. I feel like, yeah, just talking about my story it's been so inspiring for myself and other people. Like I've known you for a while now, and you know how open I am
You are
about talking about it. And yeah, I just feel like so many people that I've met as well have also sort of had their own paths and maybe had sort of disabilities or different sort of things they've dealt with, and they've not necessarily disclosed them. And by me talking about it, they've then sort of taken a step back and gone, oh, actually, maybe I should start talking about this more. And like so many people have come to me and said, like, it's great that you're sharing your story. Like, I'm going to start doing it a lot more. Or companies have been like, actually thinking about it, we probably could work with someone like yourself.
yeah,
Like, maybe we should start changing kind of, our approach to employment and things like that.
amazing. And have you done like a musical career? Have you followed any of that in your um education stuff?
So sorry, what do you mean by
Sorry, have
career?
you
Like,
done a lot of music education for your career?
yeah, so education wise, education is quite instilled in my family.
Yeah,
So I was kind of encouraged to go to university and sort of follow that side of things.
yeah,
So I did a course in music business with management,
yeah,
music technology with management.
amazing.
Um, and I feel like the course part of it is like it's great, you do learn things, but I feel like the benefit for those is getting out and doing the like putting the education like into action.
Yeah,
So like some of my best contacts that I've got in music as well are people that I met and worked with at uni on projects. And I feel like that's more of the benefit sort of on the education side is like you should really grab the social aspect of it and like putting everything you learn into practice as well as the education.
100%, and building those personal relationships. I think
Yeah,
really
definitely.
important there. So another question would be, what kind of challenges and barriers, like once you've worked in the industry and they've accessed you getting into that industry, how have you kind of overcome those? And what kind of advice could you give to other people that are in the same situation as you to overcome those barriers?
Um, I feel overcoming barriers, a lot of it is again talking to people and being very open about them and trying to work with people on breaking down those barriers because a lot of people will kind of hear the word disability and they've got kind of a vision in their head already. And not just a vision, but like a judgment of like, no, I can't work with this sort of person, but without actually talking to them and finding out more about their individual person because everybody copes with things differently. Everybody's got their own unique way that they've kind of learnt to live with their sort of disability or illness or
Yeah,
um so I feel like yeah, having an open conversation and I think also, working and accessing resources from people like Attitude is Everything, I think is so valuable. Like they really have, changed my life with working in music and again, sort of their education side of it is so good. Like if you've got sort of a venue that might not necessarily be sort of accessible or set up to, cater for people with disabilities, just point them in the direction of sort of like, education and websites and things like that and different people and sort of they can learn about it as well themselves. And I think that will definitely help break down barriers.
100%. I really agree with you on that one. So looking at the quality and diversity and inclusion in the music industry, what are your thoughts and feelings on that one?
Um, it's a tricky one. I feel like it has definitely got better. Like everybody's so now so much more open to talking about things like not just disability, but like mental health. And obviously we had the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. And I feel like it's definitely changing and going in the right direction. And yeah, I do feel like just by talking about it more and people being more open and changing their attitude and willing to have the conversation in the first place, I think is like the biggest step that's happened in the last kind of few years. It's so different to when I was kind of first started, like, 14 years ago.
I can imagine. And like visibility and role models, do you see a lot of those in the industry?
Yeah, I think in terms of sort of female people in the industry, females on the industry, like I was in a room at a management event the other day,
Mm.
and so many people were saying it's so nice to see so many women thriving and doing so well and
Yeah,
not being held back. And there was in that specific event, there was actually more women than men in the room, and it was just so nice to see.
that's so nice to hear as well. I was just going to say to you, do you think cultural and age differences have also an impact on inclusion and diversity in the industry?
Definitely. I feel like not everybody, but some of the older generation um, tend to be the ones that I've had sort of problems with in the past. I don't tend to get as many issues with your sort of younger generation. I feel like, especially with social media, like things are talked about a lot more and people are like posting a lot more and like information is shared so much more that like it's been able to open up these conversations and open up people's minds. And I feel like the younger generation is a lot more accepting of all different types of people.
100.
And I feel like maybe some of that's also to do with that maybe when they were younger, they may have had that kind of discrimination and then they don't want to like bring it into the next sort of generation, which is, one of the things I've noticed is, because I was so badly sort of not just discriminated against, but even in much younger years, like bullied and things like that at school. Like you never want to treat anyone like how you felt sort of when you were younger. So, I would never ever say anything bad to somebody because I know how hurtful that can be. And I think that's the same with sort of discrimination. Like maybe sort of the younger generation did when as they were first starting in careers, did face that and therefore they don't want to bring it forward when they're sort of in higher up positions and therefore it like trickles down and starts changing.
Yeah. But do you think that causes some kind of friction in the workforce and it causes some kind of friction down below because people don't want to see that change taking place? Or do you think?
Um, I feel like sometimes it depends sort of what companies you work for. And I feel like that's why the grassroots industry and like smaller businesses are like thriving
Yeah.
because maybe if some of the sort of the bigger companies or the higher ups in industry don't want things to change, like the you have to take your own path. So
Yeah.
it's a bit like me, like I wouldn't be able to work or probably be accepted at like a massive management company just because like of the way that they would work. I'm sure, I could try, but um, somebody probably would accept me, but like a lot generally they probably wouldn't. Just because I work so uniquely.
Yeah. That's such a shame.
So I had to create, yeah, so I feel like I had to create my own business.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people have done that. And then those smaller businesses are like thriving
Yeah.
sort of so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you on that one. And I think it's like if corporates, companies are not going to agree to do something, the smaller companies will just go ahead and do something more niche and bespoke. And it just takes,
Yeah, definitely.
you agree.
Yeah.
And what would you like to see change for the future?
Again, I feel like, I kind of say to everyone, attitude, but not attitude as in changing their attitudes towards people with disabilities, but more the attitude to start the conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, the attitude to be more open and honest about these things.
And for
I
that,
feel like that would be the first big step in changing things.
and I think one of the things I got from your talk is how unequal the industry is, and on not just one section, on two or three or four. And I think it's just really unfair for people like yourself that are so talented, just so great at doing what you do, to have to go through that. And I'm sure that has an impact on the way you feel about yourself and your mental health. And I'm sorry to hear that. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for, I do feel like, I have, by doing it all myself, I have given myself confidence. But of course, like, you do get a lot of setbacks and frustrations, and it does affect your kind of confidence and sort of ability to then do your job. But I think me as a character, I'm quite strong. So I've kind of quite a strong personality to kind of ignore when these things happen, or I'm a problem solver, so I also like try and overcome like a lot of the barriers that I do face.
Yeah, that's great. And I was going to say, like, that's so inspirational. Thank you for that, Emma. And what kind of major successes and wins would you like to share with people on a positive note? Like, what are the major things that you've kind of got through and achieved this last couple of
I
years?
feel like one of the biggest achievements that I did the past couple of years was actually where I met you. So being able to go to the Great Escape, which is a 5 day sort of event, it's
Amazing.
so hard to like keep up with the pace. It's so fast paced. There's always events going on, there's networking, you're constantly on the go. And I feel like I'm quite proud of the fact that I managed to do that. And it gave me a lot more confidence going into this year, that something I never thought I'd be able to do before, I did manage to achieve, and met so many cool people. And I feel like one of the things that I'm so grateful for is the companies behind that worked with me to
Yeah,
help me be able to do that.
yeah,
So, for example, I was given a small bursary which helped me pay for things like Ubers to go to some of the venues, because if I had to walk like all over Brighton,
yeah.
wouldn't have been able to do
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
it's just little things like that. Like I feel like my biggest achievements is yeah, where I've managed to like work with someone and conquer something that I just didn't think I'd ever do.
I'm so
But
proud of you. And yeah, I really did enjoy the time we spent together and we had an amazing time. And we stuck together and I think we all support each other as well because a lot of us had the same kind of values and goals and the same shared mission. And I think it was so refreshing. So yeah,
yeah, and I feel that's what the whole like industry is kind of changing. Is like everybody before it was a lot of competition. So
yeah,
like people are in competition with each other, and now people are supporting each other. And
exactly.
even after the actual Great Escape, like the people, we were on the sort of like Elevate program, so there
Yeah,
were, if the listeners obviously wouldn't know, but there was a couple of us that were chosen, and even now like we still all support each other afterwards and help each other with our careers and share knowledge. And I think that supportiveness is definitely helpful.
yes, I 100% agree with you on that one. And that was one of the most, I think it was one of the biggest highlights of my year last year as well. It's one of the most important. And I've met so many good friends that I've kept along the way. And like you said, we've all supported each other. And I'm sure we still will for the rest of our career.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Emma, if there's anywhere where people and the viewers can find you or if they want to contact you, how would they go about doing that?
So I've got a LinkedIn profile, so just Emma Wiggin. I also do have an Instagram, which is under my married name, so Emma Sen Izard. So yeah, I'm happy for people to contact me on there. But also, all the bands that I'm working with as well. If it'd be great if people could check them out, because they're all doing sort of amazing things just themselves, and breaking barriers and things like that, just individually as
Excellent. So
a
tell us
musician.
about your bands. Yeah, give your bands a little shout out. So what are their names?
Yeah, so I've got the Alchemy, who are doing really, really well. So they're releasing a new album this year. So we're gearing up for a very busy year.
Brilliant.
Um, I've got Spitfire Tides, who I've been working with for a while. So
Brilliant.
they're like a Bristol band, indie band. They're working on an EP currently in the studio. So again, another busy year for them. And then I've just signed a co-manage a band called Apple Shakers, who are really unique. They're definitely gonna sort of change, um, you know, the way things are being done in the industry, and like with
So
their genre and things like that.
very exciting. Well, we'll leave a link in the description below. So if anyone wants to go and check them all out, we'll leave them in the description below. Thank you so much for taking the time out today, Emma. Really enjoyed your talk. Very informative. And again, thank you. Really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.